The first rule of being a billionaire's bodyguard is never fall in love with the person you're paid to protect, especially when she looks at you like she sees straight through the armor, especially when her life depends on you not making mistakes, and especially when the danger isn't outside the mansion, but already inside. Because this story doesn't begin with love. It begins with a gunshot echoing through a marble hallway at 2:17 a.m. and Elena Blackwood screaming my name. The night Elena Blackwood almost died was the same night she stopped being just my assignment. I had been her shadow for exactly 6 months. 6 months of walking 3 steps behind her. 6 months of scanning crowds, mirrors, reflections in glass. 6 months of pretending I didn't notice the way her voice softened only when she spoke to me. Elena Blackwood, tech billionaire, media darling, worth $9.4 billion, and according to my contract, untouchable, emotionally included. She didn't hire me because she wanted another bodyguard. She hired me because the last 2 quit. One vanished. The other was found unconscious in a hotel parking lot with no memory of what happened. That should have been my warning, but I took the job anyway. Because when you've spent your life protecting people who don't look back at you, you don't walk away when one finally does. The first time Elena looked at me like I mattered wasn't dramatic. No music, no slow motion, just silence in an elevator. We were alone. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Then she said, "Do you ever get tired of being invisible?" I didn't answer. Bodyguards aren't paid to answer questions like that. She smiled anyway. And that was the moment everything began to unravel. 3 weeks later, the threats started. Objects. A broken watch left on her bedside table. A black rose placed perfectly in the center of her desk. A voicemail that said nothing except breathing. Slow, intentional, close. The police said it was probably a stalker. I said it was someone who knew her routines, someone who knew her fears, someone who had been inside the house. Elena pretended she wasn't scared, but fear has a sound. It's the way someone exhales when they think no one is listening. I heard it every night through the security monitors, and I hated myself for wanting to walk into her room, not as her guard, but as the man who could make it stop. The line between duty and desire doesn't break loudly, it erodes quietly. The attack happened during a charity gala. 500 guests, crystal chandeliers, live orchestra. Too perfect. I noticed the waiter with the wrong shoes first, then the weight shift, then the reach. I moved before the shot was fired. I tackled Elena to the ground as the glass behind us exploded. People screamed, security swarmed, and in the chaos, she wrapped her arms around me. Not reflexively, intentionally. Her heart was racing against my chest. She whispered, "Don't let go." I didn't. That was my second mistake. Because after that night, she stopped pretending she didn't feel it too. They moved us to the safe house outside the city. Just me, Elena, in silence thick enough to suffocate. No assistants, no board members, no distractions. Just long nights, longer conversations. She told me about building her empire alone, about betrayal, about never knowing who loved her and who loved her money. I told her nothing, but she listened anyway. Sometimes, late at night, she'd sit across from me with a glass of wine and say, "You watch everyone, but no one watches you." And every time she said that, I felt myself slipping. The night she touched my hand wasn't romantic, it was desperate. She had just received another message, coordinates, a date, tomorrow. She was shaking. I didn't pull away. Instead, I covered her hand with mine. She looked up at me slowly, like she already knew the answer to a question she was afraid to ask, and I said the words I shouldn't have. "I won't let anything happen to you." She whispered back, "That's what scares me." The obsession didn't come all at once. It came in moments. The way she watched me when she thought I wasn't looking, the way I memorized her footsteps, the way danger stopped feeling like a threat and started feeling like a rival. I wasn't just protecting her anymore. I was guarding something that felt like mine. And that's when I missed the signs, because obsession narrows your vision. The real enemy wasn't the stalker. It was the man standing closest to her, me. The coordinates led us to an abandoned office tower. Against protocol, Elena insisted on coming. "I'm done hiding," she said. I should have said no. Instead, I said, "Stay behind me." We reached the top floor. Empty, too quiet. Then the lights came on, and the voice echoed through the room. "Impressive loyalty," it said, "but love always makes men careless." Elena turned to me, confused, then looked past me, at the gun in my hand. Because she had never noticed, I was the only one who knew all her routes, all her safe rooms, all her fears. And in that moment, she realized the truth. The protector had become the obsession. I lowered the gun, not because I had been caught, but because I couldn't finish what I started. Tears filled her eyes, not fear, betrayal. "You did this?" she whispered. I shook my head slowly. "I did it to keep you safe." She laughed, not because it was funny, because it was terrifying. "You became the only danger I never suspected." Security burst in moments later. They took me away. She never looked at me again. Today, Elena Blackwood is safer than ever. New guards, new systems, new walls. In me, I watch her on the news sometimes, smiling, powerful, untouchable. She survived, but something in her changed, and something in me broke. Because the truth is, the most dangerous love isn't the one that wants to hurt you, it's the one that wants to protect you at any cost. Because some bodyguards don't lose their clients, they lose themselves. Prison doesn't scare men like me. Silence does. Because when you're stripped of weapons, routines, and purpose, all that's left is memory. Concrete walls, metal doors, lights that never fully turn off. In her face. Elena Blackwood never testified against me. That surprised everyone. The prosecutors wanted motive, greed, control, jealousy, but she gave them nothing. Not because she forgave me, because she didn't want to see me ever again. And that hurt more than any sentence. Years passed. I learned something about obsession in that place. It doesn't disappear when it's exposed. It mutates. The day I was released, the world had moved on. New billionaires, new headlines, new dangers. But some names never fade. Elena's was everywhere. She had doubled her net worth, launched a global security tech firm, ironically, focused on executive protection. She had turned trauma into an empire. I should have stayed invisible. I didn't. Because obsession convinces you the distance is unfinished business. The first sign she was still being watched came in the form of a pattern. 3 failed breaches in 3 different countries. Same timing, same signature, same restraint. Someone wasn't trying to kill her. They were testing her defenses, learning her limits, just like I once had. I tried to warn her anonymously. Encrypted message, no signature. She ignored it, until the 4th breach succeeded. The attack didn't make the news, but I knew.
because it followed a rule no amateur would understand. If you want to truly scare a powerful woman, you don't hurt her, you touch her world. Her assistant vanished for 6 hours, returned unharmed, silent, different. Elena shut down operations immediately, and for the first time in years, she thought of me. I felt it before I saw it. The car outside my apartment, the engine idling too long, the silhouette that didn't move. When the knock came, it wasn't aggressive, it was controlled, professional. I opened the door.
She stood there, not the Elena I remembered, sharper, colder, stronger, but her eyes, they still carried the weight of unfinished things. She didn't greet me, didn't accuse me. She said only one sentence. "Someone knows how I think, the way you did." Silence. Then she added, "And I hate that you're the only one who might understand." Working with her again wasn't a choice, it was gravity. Rules were set, distance enforced, trust non-existent. But danger has a way of forcing proximity. Late nights, shared screens, half-finished sentences. She never asked why I did it. I never offered excuses, because some truths don't heal. They just sit between people, waiting. The new threat was patient, smarter than I ever was. He mirrored my old patterns, then corrected my mistakes, which meant one thing. He had studied me deeply, and that realization changed everything. Because this wasn't about Elena, this was about legacy. The message arrived on a secure channel only I knew existed. One line, "You taught me well." My hands went cold. Elena noticed. She always did. "Who is it?" she asked. I hesitated, then said the truth. Someone who learned obsession from the wrong man. The final confrontation didn't happen in a boardroom or a penthouse. It happened underground, a forgotten transit tunnel beneath the city, the place where Elena's father had died years ago. Information no one should have known, except me, and now him. The man stepped out of the shadows, younger, calmer, dangerously empty. A former junior guard from years ago, someone I had trained, ignored, dismissed. He looked at Elena, not with desire, but with reverence. "I protect her," he said, "just like you did." Elena turned to me slowly, and in that moment, she understood. Obsession doesn't die, it transfers. The choice was simple. One of us wouldn't leave that tunnel. I stepped forward, not as her guard, not as her lover, but as the consequence of my own actions. The fight was brutal, fast, quiet, final. When it ended, I was bleeding, and he wasn't moving. Sirens echoed above. Elena knelt beside me, not touching, just watching. "You always believed protection meant control," she said softly. "And now?" I asked. She stood. "I believe survival means letting go." She walked away before they arrived. This time, I didn't chase. Today, Elena Blackwood lives without shadows, and I live with mine. Because the truth no one tells you is this: love doesn't make people dangerous. Obsession does. And sometimes, the bodyguard isn't the hero. He's the warning. Because not every story ends with redemption. Some end with understanding, and that has to be enough. Understanding doesn't bring peace right away. It brings distance. Months passed after the tunnel incident. No trials, no interviews, no public closure. The city buried the story quietly. One obsessed protector eliminated another, a problem solved before it could grow teeth. That's how power works. Elena relocated again. New continent, new identity layers, new systems designed by people who would never get close enough to fall in love with her. That was intentional. And for the first time, it worked. As for me, I disappeared on purpose. Not hiding, retiring. Because when you've spent your life watching doors, exits, reflections, you eventually realize you've never actually lived inside a room. I bought a small place near the sea. No guards, no weapons, no alarms beyond a lock that squeaked when turned. At night, the waves reminded me of breathing, slow, uncontrolled, human. I learned how to sit with silence without trying to fix it. That took longer than prison ever did. Then one evening, a package arrived. No return address, no courier logo, just my name, written in a hand I recognized instantly. Inside was a single object, a watch, broken. The same model that had once been left on Elena's bedside table years ago. The first warning, the beginning of everything. And beneath it, a note. 6 words. You don't get to disappear. Obsession had survived again, but this time, it wasn't mine. I contacted Elena immediately. She answered on the 3rd ring. No greeting, no surprise. She said, "I knew you'd call." That told me everything. She had received one too. Not the watch, something else, something personal. "They're not after me," she said quietly. "They're after the idea of me." That was worse, because ideas don't bleed. The new threat wasn't a person, it was a network. Former guards, security contractors, discharged operatives, people who had built their identities around protecting powerful individuals, then lost that purpose. They didn't want money, they wanted relevance, and Elena Blackwood had become their symbol. I returned to the world I'd tried to leave, but this time on my terms. No contracts, no proximity, no blurred lines. I worked from the edges, patterns, digital footprints, behavioral echoes. And the more I uncovered, the more uncomfortable the truth became. They weren't united by Elena. They were united by me. My methods, my philosophies, my mistakes. I hadn't just trained one obsessed protector. I had inspired many. Elena and I met one last time. Public place, daylight, crowded. Distance maintained. She looked calm. That scared me more than fear ever did. "This ends tonight," she said. I nodded. "Then listen carefully," I replied. She leaned in, and for the first time in years, she trusted me without needing me. The takedown was surgical. Accounts frozen, communications exposed, leaders isolated. No shootouts, no drama, just removal. The network collapsed in silence, because obsession can't survive daylight. Weeks later, the messages stopped. The watch meant nothing now, just a reminder. Elena sent one final message, not encrypted, not hidden, just words. "Take care of yourself. That's no longer my responsibility." I smiled, because she was right. Years from now, people will tell stories about Elena Blackwood, about her rise, her resilience, her power. They'll say she was untouchable. What they won't say is how close danger came wearing loyalty's face, or how love, when twisted into possession,
nearly destroyed her. In me, I became something rare, a man who understands what he must never be again. Because the most dangerous people in the world aren't villains. They're protectors who forget where the line is. Let that sit, because every obsession starts with good intentions, and every boundary crossed feels justified until it's too late. Some stories warn you about enemies. This one warns you about yourself. Time has a strange way of softening sharp memories, but sharpening their meaning. Years passed without another message. No watches, no threats, no reminders. That's how I knew it was truly over. Because obsession never fades loudly. It fades when there's nothing left to feed on. Sometimes late at night, I still replay moments I shouldn't miss. The echo of footsteps behind hers. The instinct to scan exits. The quiet comfort of purpose.
But I don't romanticize it anymore, because I finally understand something most people never do. Protection feels noble until it becomes control. Love feels pure until it demands ownership, and loyalty feels honorable until it refuses to let go. Elena Blackwood never reached out again, and that was the kindest thing she ever did for both of us. She didn't need closure. She had clarity, and clarity doesn't reopen doors. As for me, I learned to live without watching over anyone. No one's shadow, no one's shield, no one's obsession. Just a man who wakes up, breathes deeply, and lets the world move without interference. That took more strength than any fight I ever won. If you're listening to this story and feeling uneasy, good. That means you understand. Because the danger wasn't the guns, or the stalkers, or the shadows. The danger was the moment protection turned into identity. The moment love stopped being a choice and became a mission. Some people think being needed is the same as being loved. It isn't. Love allows freedom. Obsession demands proximity. Love trusts. Obsession watches. Love steps back when asked. Obsession steps closer, even when it shouldn't. The billionaire survived, the bodyguard changed, and the world kept turning, unaware of how close it came to a different ending. Let that silence breathe, because not every villain knows he's become one, and not every protector realizes when it's time to let go. This wasn't a love story, it was a warning, and if you're still here listening, then maybe it worked. Because the most dangerous thing in the world isn't power, isn't money, isn't even obsession. It's believing you're the only one who can save someone. And that is where every fall begins. Silence. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Golden Billionaire Stories. Here, every tale drips with luxury, power, and passion. Because here, love always comes with a price.